our online participants. So I will not take too much time, but introduce our last presenter for this session, Mr. Emmanuel Pok, who is the Acting Registrar for the Integrity of Political Parties and Candidates Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Gassman, and thank you, the Transparency International, for the invitation. Also, at this juncture, I would like to commend the Transparency International for the efforts you've invested in observing the 2022 national elections, and also producing the 2022 national observation election observation report on a timely manner when our Parliament is in session, and they can also have a look at the report and deliberate on it. Thank you very much for that. Before I present, I would like to acknowledge a few important people here. His Eminence, Cardinal Ribat, thank you for your presence. Members of the diplomatic corps who have been here and who are here, thank you for your presence and support as well. I also would like to thank our international development partners, some of the representatives who are here. Thank you very much for your support, and I can see the country director for IEFS here, Mr. Rowland. Thank you very much for your support in our electoral system. And also representative from the World Bank who is here, Dr. Bobby. I would also thank the presence of the Joint Security Task Force for the 2022 national elections. One of our representatives was here. Thank you very much, the Deputy Commissioner for CIS. And of course, the member of the IDEC, the Department of Prime Minister and NSC. I will not bore you with our presentation. I think we've all been either participants, observers, or assisting in the election process. And many of our observers and observation presented here are common. And we also acknowledge the report that has been produced by the Transparency International. It's in detail. And I will not dwell a lot in that. But I also would like to acknowledge that political parties are important participants in the election process. Without political parties participating well in the election process, we wouldn't have an election, right? So political parties are key players. Political parties, their candidates, and their supporters. There are three important parties involved in the political party system. That's why the political parties in Papua New Guinea are regulated by different organic law. The organic law on the integrity of political parties and candidates. And the PNG Electoral Commission, as the election administrator, is administered by a different organic law. So that makes the political parties and the PNG Electoral Commission that constitutional ground to participate and administer elections in Papua New Guinea, and in turn produce a strong democracy for our country. I can see some of you, the water bottles are empty, and I know you need food, right? So please bear with me. I'll just take 5 minutes of your time. The Registry of Political Parties observations are very specific. In the last 20 years, the Registry of Political Parties have invested in political parties. The state funds political parties who are members of parliament. And so we also regulate the political parties' behavior through the establishment of the organic law. That's why our observation and requirements for political participation for political parties in an election is very specific. we've the methodology that we've applied is through administering a questionnaire, but also the Registry of Political Parties specifically know what we want from political parties. Since political parties are major players, and we find that the organic law on national and local level government elections, there are certain provisions that do not regulate political parties' behavior in an election. Okay, you would appreciate that. Why I'm saying this is because the nomination forms that is found in the organic law on elections, the regulations, does not really specify the political party's performance or political party's participation. How can you hold a political party accountable in an election? Because political parties, they endorse candidates. The candidates, they campaign and solicit support for the candidates, for the voters to vote their candidates. So they automatically subscribe to the law, but they are not regulated. They're not responsible under the law to hold them accountable. So that's why the election reforms that now we are proposing is very timely, and now that Papua New Guinea is going towards 50 years, we need to relook at the election laws and then strengthen it, and in turn it will strengthen our democracy. And election is a main pillar of democracy. When there's trust and integrity in the election process, people will accept the outcome of the election. When people do not trust the process, and when there's no integrity in the process, you see, these kind of people, now we're having, since the 2002 national elections, we've had an increased number of election petitions. So what does that tell us? Sorry, I'm going out of line a bit, but I'm summarizing some of the things that I would say in my presentation. We've observed specific seats in the 4 regions. Our interest is political parties and women candidates. We've given specific attention to women candidates because under the revised organic law on the integrity of political parties and candidates, we are proposing to legislate women's participation in this country. There is no law that creates the platform for women's participation in this country. The only law is the organic law on provincial and local level government, which gives space for women to participate in the district development authority or the provincial assembly, where they just become mere rubber stamps to give the quorum for decisions. And also, if you can remember, in 2012, the women's, we call it temporary special measures, but the bill that Lady Carol Kidu presented in Parliament got shelved. That was supposed to be the only legislation that was supposed to legislate women's participation in our political landscape, but that didn't go through. So the Registry of Political Parties took up that, and we're proposing to legislate women's participation through political parties. So that was one of our interests. So we've observed seats that were contested by women, prominent women leaders in this country, and seats, politically significant seats contested all by politically significant Papua New Guineans or political party leaders. and seats contested by executives of political parties. Due to resource constraints, in the islands region, as you can see, we've observed 4 open electorates, 4 provincial seats. Southern region, 11 open electorates, 2 provincial seats. Mamase, 7 open electorates, 2 provincial seats, and NGI, 4 electorates and open electorates and 2 provincial seats. In 2017, 46 political parties were registered that were ready to contest elections in 2017, but 45 contested the elections. In 2022, we've had 53 registered political parties, 52 contested elections. The number is slowly increasing. Just yesterday, the commission members, registered an additional political party. So you now have 54 political parties in Papua New Guinea. At the eve of election, we've deregistered 5 political parties, but again, 13 new registered political parties were registered. I'm happy to get questions from you later on that. But is statistics that we plucked out from our election observation report. Our election observation report is not ready yet. I think it'll be ready in 2 weeks' time, but we'll launch it sometimes early next year. Okay, this election, 108 seats won by party and those candidates, including 2 women candidates. As I've said, we've been investing a lot in potential women candidates since after the 2017 elections. And we've at least got 2 women candidates into parliament this election, and we are happy about that. 9 seats won by independent candidates. This election, in 2017, 14 independent candidates won. 3 newly registered political parties won seats in parliament this election. These 3 political parties were registered at the eve of elections. It's the Advanced PNG Party, the Liberal Party, and the PNG Destiny Party. Despite our efforts to minimize independent candidates in our elections, there's still increasing independent candidates contesting the national general elections. 7 new electorates were created also at the eve of elections. This is a big challenge for political parties. As you know, political parties in this country, they lack resources. They still are not strong as democratic institutions. And we at the Registry of Political Parties monitor their bank accounts, and I can qualify that. So 7 new electorates, political parties, their budget and their focus on an election, they prepare 6 or 8 months in advance. And this decision has created at some constraints on their budget. They couldn't expand more, so political parties did not participate well when they spread their resources in the newly created electorates. Okay, in presenting some of our key findings here, I also would like you to appreciate that Papua New Guinea's political landscape is different. We are a unique country. We can't compare ourselves with other democracies, other Pacific Island countries. Our political landscape is totally different. As you have seen the presentations from our observations, we take democracy differently and participation in election differently, right? And also our political culture. Our political culture, the culture up in the highlands is somewhat different from the other regions. And when observing elections, we also appreciate that. So when we recommend for reforms, we must also appreciate the political culture and the landscape, the political landscape Papua New Guinea is in. During the campaign period, we've seen that campaigns intensified in the last 2 weeks of campaigns. Because of the resources that have been spread out, political parties did not go out actively in the after the nomination, first week, second week, they left it out. They just did some mild campaign around the place, but active campaigns intensified in the last 2 weeks of the campaign period of the 6 weeks. The 2022 national general election is an election where political parties participated really well. Since the inception of the Office of the Integrity of Political Parties and Candidates Commission in 2002, political parties did not come out really well. As mentioned by, as observed by the National Research Institute, this year political parties were well prepared. They came out with colors. Their policies were clear. Their platforms, their ideologies were clear. They really, and that transpired in the candidates that they've endorsed and campaigned on. This is a direct result of the investment the Registry of Political Parties has made with the political parties in the last 10 years. We've had quarterly workshops, trainings for the executives of political parties, the leaders of political parties, to prepare them to participate in the 2022 national general elections. Political party support for women candidates is still lacking, despite a lot of awareness and working with political parties to endorse and support women candidates. Political parties have their own way of thinking and operating. Political parties, in one of the engagement with our office, we said, hey, why don't you adequately support the women candidates? And they said, no, we want to invest on a horse that will come home. Yeah? So, political parties participate to win an election, right? They're not charity organizations, so we have to appreciate that too, huh? Women candidates are still not voting for women candidates. Voters, female voters, not voting for women candidates. We need to create a lot of awareness going down to the communities, because now we have 3 votes. We've been making awareness in the communities to women voters that if one vote is taken up by your tribe, your family, you retain your 2 and 3 votes to distribute it to the women candidates. Votes were predetermined. Votes were predetermined, so, women candidates, vulnerable people were turned away. Only aggressive people stood and defended themselves, and they voted. Yeah, everything else is same. Okay, we appointments of provincial police commanders and provincial administrators, returning officers. These are very important political offices during election or before elections. We had an instance in Enga province where the provincial police commander was changed just, I think, a week before the polling. And he ran away with the provincial security operations plan. And that has contributed to the mayhem that has happened in the Enga province. And some provincial administrators have been also changed the eve of election. Provincial administrators are chairman of the Provincial Election Steering Committee. So these are political decisions that contribute to the maladministration of elections. One of our first recommendations is the passage of the revised OLIPEC. The revised organic law was ready and submitted to Parliament since 2014, but it died with the last Parliament, and we are resurrecting it again. It has some very important provisions on contributing to improving elections in Papua New Guinea. The second recommendation, we have invested a lot of resources, key partners on improving elections, led by the Constitutional Law Reform Commission. In 2019, we did a wider consultation to improve or to revise election-related laws. So we really recommend that the government or the parliamentary committee on elections look into this report. And of course, we need the biometric voting system. We need a change in the voting system. If we have the current voting system still in place, we will not get the desired outcome that we want. LLG elections, we also concur with the observation from the recommendation from the National Research Institute. LLG elections should be conducted before the national general elections for electoral roll vetting purposes. The next recommendation is no last-minute changes to political offices. The provincial police commanders, the provincial administrators, the returning officers were very important decision makers in the outcome of the election, should be public servants. And the election managers, the appointments must be 3 months prior to the national general election. In the absence of candidate qualification, at the Registry of Political Parties, we also have been working with the political parties to have a stringent candidate selection process. So they select good citizens of this country to take on higher responsibilities and also occupy public office. The rollout of code of conduct, it's not here, but we've been working with the PNG Electoral Commission and IEFS and the Australian Electoral assistance from the Australian Electoral Commission to roll out what is called the code of conduct. Code of conduct is important for political parties and their candidates and their supporters. Okay, in the nomination forms, the Registry of Political Parties recommending strongly that Form 23 should have Form 23A and Form 23B for political parties to fill and for their candidates to fill as well. Code of conduct is important because we have to regulate the behavior of the political parties, the candidates during an election. When they nominate, they are subscribing to our laws. They are potential candidates to hold a public office, an important office. Okay? They'll be legislators. So their conduct during an election must be regulated. In the current provisions, the laws, they're not regulated. They go, when they campaign, they bump the cars, they kill somebody, they walk out free. There should be they should take some responsibilities. When a candidate or political party, candidate of a political party does that, your nomination is nullified. Okay? So this kind of measures needs to be taken. Give some responsibilities back to the candidates and the supporters. It's already an abuse of public office now. Conclusion, as I've said, the election process must have integrity and must be trusted by the people so that we accept the outcome of the election. Election is always the first indicator of legitimacy, you know. We want to be run by a legitimate government. And election process is very important, is the prime indicator of legitimacy. So we need integrity, we have to trust, make the process work, a democratic process work. Finally, we are very pleased and happy to see the establishment of the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Election Reforms. We at the Registry of Political Parties have been pushing for that, have been recommending Parliament through the Clerk of Parliament, and we commend and appreciate the current government for establishing that in Parliament. With that, thank you very much, and we wish TIPNG all the best in the next 2 days of your seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pok, for sharing those insights from the political party's perspective.